I've been working as translator and interpreter for more than 30 years. And in my early career of translation and interpretation, I had a lot of opportunity to work with the entertainment business. Entertainment business, including some celebrity singers, actors, and movie directors, kabuki actors. Some very famous movie directors, like for example, Koreeda is a famous the director. I work for LCSD, the Leisure and Cultural Service Department of Government for 25 years, and those performance in Hong Kong, for example, the theater actors, dancers. I do the coordination. I help them in setting up the stage and translate the pamphlet.
First, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
accepting to doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
How about maybe we start with a self-introduction so that the people know a little bit about you?
Yeah, my name is Charles Chen, and I teach in the Hong Kong Education University, and I am teaching Japanese and Japanese culture in the modern language department.
I've seen some of your events translating between Japanese, English, and Cantonese.
一緒に人形が行われるっていうような形もあります。
咁其實好多變化可以做得到嘅。咁因為車人形嘅特徵就係嗰個公仔係可以踩喺個台上面嘅，所以好多嘢就冇。
Is that your feet should be a little bit bigger than the shoes itself.
これで決して通り小さいではないです。
Never select one is bigger than your feet.
From a translator perspective, which is the most challenging aspect to translate?
Well, it's always difficult to translate from Japanese to either Chinese or English, because Japanese is something very different structurally and language in the sense of language typology or types, because this is totally different. Well, I would say Chinese is more closer to English rather than Japanese. Sometimes people look at Japanese and they see the kanjis.
Yeah.
Right, the kanjis are similar to Chinese, so they think that most people think that Japanese is easy to learn, but actually it's not. It's a very, very foreign thing, different thing, alien to us.
Okay, so translating from Cantonese to English is much easier than translating from Japanese to English?
Yes, basically because the word order are similar, but while Japanese is very different. For example, the negative form and the past tense are in the end of the sentence. So when I translate from, for example, Japanese to English, I have to wait until the sentence is finished. Then we will know that whether it is a positive or negative.
Okay, that's interesting. So you cannot translate like in synchronization. You have to wait till the end of the sentence.
Yes, this is not such a problem when we do sequential, consecutive translation. But when we do instant, SI, we call it simultaneous translation, simultaneous interpretation.
Yeah.
This is a big problem because you have to wait until it's finished, but the speaker will not wait for you.
Yes,
so you have to cover a lot and speak very fast. Yes,
That's challenging.
Different from Chinese and English.
How about from the cultural perspective? Is translating the Japanese mindset to English more difficult than translating the Cantonese mindset, or both?
No, again, Japanese translating to either of these languages pose a challenge. The most obvious one is that Japanese usually they don't use subject. Like in Italian, usually whenever you can, you skip the subject. So like, I like you, Japanese usually say like, skipping I and you, right? But while in English, you must put something in the subject position.
That's true.
Right? So this always, you need to, if you translate from Japanese to English, you always need to put the subject back.
Yeah.
And that's posed a little challenge. For human, it's better. For machine translation, this is very challenging because the machine lacks the ability to guess from the context whether this subject is. Right. So this is one of them. And another one is most people know that Japanese has a different form of languages according to the formality and to the speaker you're talking to.
Okay.
Well, you use different kind of language to identify the listener, whether he or she is socially more superior or less superior than you. So this is kind of a difficult. We know instantly when we listen to two persons speaking,
Yeah.
we instantly know their social relationship by listening to the language they use.
That is interesting. So, a few questions about Hong Kong. One is I'm very intrigued by this is why so many people of Hong Kong love Japan. Like I've never seen any nation that love another nation as much as Hong Kongers for the Japanese. Do you have any theory about the reason?
Okay, if you like something, right, love something, and usually either that thing is that culture, that culture has something that yours do not have, or that culture has something similar to your culture. Maybe I don't know. Okay, so to Hong Kong people, I guess there's a lot of things that Chinese culture do not have. And also there are something that that you feel is similar, that you feel close to. For example, they have a kanji. Well, you can instantly understand certain meaning, right, by reading their kanji writings. So it makes them feel more easy to more prepared to easy to understand something. And also there's something different they have and we don't. For example, the manner of Japanese people, and I think one of them is the predictability. That you can predict Japanese people's action because most of them act very, very close. I mean, more predictable. Because Japanese society is something that people tend to do something in a society. So people will act very similar. So to me, I think they are more predictable than in people in Hong Kong. But everyone has a different way of thinking things or something like that. My father was born in Japan, so as a child, I had the opportunity to have this Japanese culture at home. So to me, Japanese culture is not like a foreign culture. It's like something that come together hand in hand with my Chinese family, Chinese culture.
So your father is Hong Konger but was born in Japan?
Yeah, he was born in Japan and come to Hong Kong and met my mother, who was born in Malacca, Malaysia. So we are not that, kind of Hong Kong, not so much know so much about Hong Kong culture.
Okay.
When I was young, they were the only common language of them was Mandarin Chinese. So they only talked to me in Cantonese when I grew up. Yeah, I can't speak Mandarin Chinese. Not as good as Cantonese.
Okay. So that means you speak 4 languages, right? That would make it Japanese, Cantonese, English, and Mandarin?
Yes.
Okay. Do you feel that you lean a little bit more to the Japanese culture?
Yeah, my wife, who is Japanese, she said I'm more Japanese than the normal Japanese people.
Wow.
I think like them. I like what they're thinking. I'm not saying that they're perfect. Nowhere is perfect. No culture is perfect. But I see myself more readily adapt to their lifestyle and their way of thinking, and than Chinese people, than Hong Kong people.
Is it because of what you said, also the predictability that you know how things normally would go?
Yes, I found it's easier to. I'm not a person who is good at communication. I rather be alone than in a party. This is me. So, but when I'm among Japanese people, I found it's easy to communicate with them because I can predict. I know what. How they behave and how they react if I say this or do these things. But in Hong Kong, people are less predictable.
Interesting. Can you give me an example of a predictable behavior in a certain context?
For example, when Japanese people, I first met Japanese people, I'll be very polite, right? Like usual, like most Japanese people behave. I will be very polite, use the honorific words, the polite words, and consider all these social etiquette, right? And usually they behave similarly, and they will be very polite to me and think of everything possible that do not make me angry or something. But in Hong Kong, when I approach someone, I try to be very polite. Sometimes they can be very rude to me. This is not balanced. I don't feel very good. But sometimes, okay, when I was quite casual and approaching someone, and he will become like very super polite and do very good thing to me, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry. So this is not. It's difficult to keep the balance. I don't know how I should behave until I know that person better.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
casual.
so normally when you approach a Japanese in a respectful way, you know that 99.9% that person would respond in the same manner.
That's what I mean.
That is very interesting. Yeah, I guess it's very Japanese because most parts around the world people are unpredictable. What's other aspects of the Japanese culture that fascinates you, that you more interested in? Is it art, for example? Because I've seen you in certain events about art, or which aspects of the Japanese culture?
Oh, okay. I studied art in Japan, printmaking, and the art I think is is fascinating, and more because I was studying the printmaking, which is the craftsmanship. The craft is a craftsmanship that attracted me more than art, because they really they can spend the whole life to work on something that to trying to make it perfect. We call that craftsmanship. But I think this is something that attracted me more than the art.
Okay. Can you give a few examples or an example of something that fascinates you? Because, for example, as an outsider, I see that the Japanese people pay a lot of details for things. So, for example, the other time for the kimono event, which part you put on the other one mean different things. The colors, the shape, the length have different meanings, or like the flower arrangements, or all the other aspects of the art of the Japanese culture. Can you give an example, maybe a little bit detailed?
Yeah, this craftsmanship, we call them shokunin seishin, the spirit of a shokunin, which means the craftsman. Just like I said, they will try to perfect their skills in the whole life. So when the skills are reach a certain level, they don't think, okay, now I can make something that is so superior, then I will sell it for a higher price. They don't think about that. They don't think that. So they don't sell themselves like I'm better than everyone. They just want to do their job and do it better and better every day, and this is their life. They devoted their life to something they're good at, and so this is called what I think interesting. I studied Japanese sake, the alcoholic drink made of rice, right? I got 3 sake licenses, like sake tasting licenses, and I've seen them visit these brewers when they make sake. Right? This is it's amazing because this I can see all these craftsmanship and the spirit of craftsmanship in all their works, and not needless to mention others craftsmanship like potteries. I've seen some pottery masters or the lacquer masters, the traditional Japanese craftsmanship. They are very, very devoted to these art, and then you can say they're perfect. They're perfect, and sometimes the handmade products are even better than the industrial made things. So this is amazing. I think everyone when you go to Japan, you should pay a visit to these kind of craftsmanship. Anything.
I know that the Japanese culture is very different, and I think that part of that difference is reflected in their language. Can you think of a word or an expression that it's very difficult to translate into English?
Right. We call this untranslatable in translation. Okay. Like Well, first of all, this if this is translatable or not, but depends a lot on the translator himself or herself. And everything is translatable, of course, if you have the time, right? So in translation, we call untranslatable. Doesn't mean that it is impossible to translate. It only means that it is difficult to translate, and you do not have a one-to-one equivalent of the two languages. Just that. Okay, so when we say untranslatable, it actually means translatable but difficult. And so there's a lot of things you go online, you can see a lot of these things, like something about culture, right? Because culture, language shape how we think, and in the opposite, how we think and categorize the world will shape our language, right? So you can see some of these things in all languages. For example, in Cantonese, I have a word in Cantonese. When I take some foreign friends to outside for dinner, I usually tell them this: when you eat Chinese food, usually the meat comes with the bone in it. A lot of cases, like the pork bone in spare rib, or the chicken wing and chicken feet, right? We usually can deal with that. Some culture, they don't want the bone in the meat, right? In Chinese, we put it in the mouth and we clean up the meat and spit out the bone, right? We have a verb for that in Cantonese. It's called lun. So to lun a bone, lun guat. So I don't find this verb in most language I know. So this because we do it all the time, so we need a verb for that, right? So like in every language you can find these examples. In Japan also, there are. For example, I mentioned the honorific form, right? And humble form. For the same verb, you have the different forms, but these are so-called untranslatable in other language. You cannot totally translate the idea of those speakers' social status in the language.
That's good. Yeah, because in English there is no kind of hierarchy. There is just you.
Right.
Can you maybe explain those? Like, how many levels are there in Japanese, and maybe how do you change the verb ending or the end of the sentence?
Yes. For example, to go to somewhere. Okay, so if I am going to somewhere, I say mairimasu. This is humble form. But if the one who go is someone superior than me, and that person is irashaimasu. So there's at least three forms. So like the normal one, ikimasu, the humble one, mairimasu, and the superior, the honorific one, irashaimasu. So there are three different forms. So if I say irashaimasu, I don't even need to pinpoint the subject, because everyone knows this is about the person I'm pointing to. If I say mairimasu, it must be me. So it's difficult to translate that in English. But it's not impossible. You have to use more words. In translation, we have something called a paraphrasing, that you can use a phrase to explain one word.
Exactly.
This is possible, but the less practical for example, you're translating subtitle. You cannot use so many spaces.
That's true. For people visiting Japan, what are some of the things that they should keep in mind in terms of their behavior, maybe things that the Japanese people do or they don't like to do, that's maybe tourists when they go unknowingly? Maybe, for example, the rule about don't speak loudly on the train. There are so many cultures where you can speak on the phone and it's okay, it's not a problem. But maybe for the Japanese, it's a problem. Or like removing your shoes, etc. Can you like share some examples for tourists to consider when visiting Japan for the first time?
You've mentioned most of them. Taking off shoes, right? Don't talk loud in the train, right? But the opposite, right? Sometimes we use our own culture to behave in other people's culture. So sometimes it's the opposite. For example, you don't slurp your noodles, right? It's not loudly. But in Japanese, it's perfectly okay, and you can never eat in a train in Hong Kong, but you can go ahead and eat in the train in Japan. They even provide this ekiben, this is the lunch box for you in the station. You can eat it on the train. So this is the opposite. And for something that you should not do, of course, is trying to keep yourself in low profile, trying not to attract other people's attention or to so this, I think, people from Hong Kong has a very difficult time to adjust to that. So they like to call their friends loudly. Hey, come on! There's something here. Let's look at it. And this is definitely a taboo in Japan, because Japanese people are a kind of a monolingual people. When they hear some language they don't know, they they don't feel good. So if you're speaking foreign language other than English, of course, right? If you speak English, it's okay. But if you speak a foreign language, they loudly, they don't. Most people don't like it.
So of course, uncomfortable.
Yeah, they feel kind of uncomfortable.
I was wondering about the effects of the writing system of maybe Japanese or Cantonese. For example, I know that the Japanese names normally mean things, and the characters that the parents choose for their kids normally are important to the family or the parents. So which is very different from English, because many times it's just a nice name that they heard, or they're just like an athlete, etc. But I guess for the Japanese, naming is quite important because of the characters. Can you maybe explain this or talk about another example?
Yes. Most Japanese people's names will have kanji. Not 100%, but most of them will have. But kanji to Japanese people are different from what we look at kanji. To us, kanji is the only thing we have. So we use kanji to for meaning, for the sound of something. Right? But to Japanese people, kanji is necessary to use kanji in the language. But kanji to them has some spiritual thing in it. It represents something that is more than the character, the meaning, and the character itself. That's why they choose the kanji for their child, because of that. Not only the meaning of the kanji, but about the form of the kanji, and a lot of things to consider. So the pronunciation of kanji can have dozens of pronunciation. They can have. We most of the time we have only one pronunciation for one kanji. But in Chinese, sometimes we have 3 or 4, but not that much. But in Japan, one kanji has dozens of pronunciation. So most of the parents, they first have a pronunciation first, and then they pick a kanji that fit that pronunciation and give it to the child. That's something different. You might know that in the kanji culture, like in Korea, in Japan, China, and some Southeast Asian countries, they have kanjis. But Japan is different, because in Korea you can totally take away kanji and only use the transcription, the form of the Korean word. But in Japan this is impossible, because whenever you say something, Japanese people has a kanji in mind, or they cannot speak the language. That's because in Japan there's so many mononyms, which means one pronunciation can have so many meanings. If they don't have that kanji in mind, it's very confusing. Give an example. For example, you know that many Japanese girls has a name ending with ko, right?
Okay.
Ko, right? Like our common friend Nami Ko, right?
Yeah.
Ko means small child or girl, right? But ko can mean a lot of things as a small. For example, powder, right? So we have panko. Panko means the breadcrumbs, right?
Okay.
But that does not mean a person. So in this way, a single pronunciation can have tons of different meaning. So they do that by, when they speak that language, they know that the kanji comes up in their mind. So we can never get rid of kanji in Japan. That's the reason.
Oh, is it? That's the reason why when sometimes people introduce themselves, sometimes they say the kanji that they use in their names Is that the reason? Because I saw that also, which I found very interesting is people will say their name, like for example, maybe Namiko, and then they will name the kind of kanji they use so that you can if imagine it
Exactly.
correctly. That's why they do that.
Yeah. That's why they do that. This is the reason because you have to have some kanji in your mind to anchor that meaning. For example, my former boss, he's a man, a 50 years old man. His name is Toshihiko. So people keep asking him the question, why you have a girl's name, right? But it's not Ko, it's Hiko. Hiko means handsome or you know. So you cannot separate. But when Japanese people they say something Ko, you notice that's the name for girls. But Hiko is another kanji. So kanji education is very important in Japan. You cannot get rid of that. This is part of the culture. It is fused into their language. You cannot take it away.
Okay. And also like so in Japanese there are 3 writing systems, right? So there is kanji, hiragana, and katakana. How they are used differently? How do people use them differently? So you said maybe kanji has this spiritual, special meaning to the people. How about hiragana and katakana?
The biggest advantage of kanji is you can read very fast because the kanji, one kanji can have a lot of meaning in one word. But if you use only kana, the thing you read is the sound of the language. You have to transcribe that sound back in your brain into meaning. But kanji itself carry a meaning. So instantly, the second you scan that kanji, a series of kanji, you get a lot of meaning inside. So this is the most advantages of using kanji. So people have been doing these experiments, researches, and showing kanji text to Japanese speaker, and also showing them the only kana, the speed of reading improve a lot when you have kanji mixed in the writings. I would usually say hiragana and katakana is like the capital letter and the small letter of English because they are similarly, they use 2 different characters to represent the same sound. So they're both kana, but of course the usage are very differently, but the basic are the same. You have 2 words for the same pronunciation.
Okay. Is there anything you would like to add or share about Japan or Hong Kong or any other culture maybe that you find interesting?
Yeah, I think as someone's native language is Cantonese, I advise every Hong Kong people to learn Thai language. It's easy to learn because Cantonese has a lot common with Thai language. First, they are also a tone language. The tone they did not have tone until they adapted the Chinese language tone. So they have tone. They have 5 tones, but more complicated than Mandarin. So more readily for us to learn, right? And also many words are very similar. I think they have the same source. We call it cognates as Japanese, as Cantonese, because we geographically closer, and we borrow a lot of words from them, and they also borrow words from us. So we create a lot of common terms in Thai language, and also Thai language is pronunciation is quite similar to Cantonese. So I advise everyone learn Thai language. It's a lot of fun. And one more thing about Hong Kong people learning Japanese, right? Most of them cannot pronounce the word ra, re, ro. This is a r sound because it's spelled as r. So most of Hong Kong people will think that this is ra. This is the tongue rolling English r. But this is not, because as a matter of fact, most languages who has an r sound does not pronounce ra. Because it's only English use that pronunciation, right? In French it's just right?
Yeah.
And in Spanish, Italian, and many other European languages, it is ra, which is exactly as the same as the Japanese ra. But Hong Kong people usually, because we don't have that sound, we usually pronounce L sound. So it's the la li lu le lo, which is different, which is not right. So that's why I can tell whether the speaker of Japanese are from Hong Kong, from Taiwan, from China, or from other places, I can usually tell because of their accents. This radiolero is easy. Hong Kong people usually use tones in any language they learn. The right? For example, like wasabi, you use that in your sushi. It's wasabi, but they say the wasabi, right? It's So this sound in any language they know, right? For example, Namiko, they say Namiko, like something like that. The tones, okay, there's this tone that gives them up, gives them away. Hong Kong, from Hong Kong, right? And also, for example, for American, they speak Japanese, they will usually weaken the sound. For example, kaite arimasu, they say kaitenes, taiteres. They will weaken the sounds. So easy to tell whether, oh, this is an English speaker. Right. So the la li lu le lo, the L sound also does not the la li lu le lo also does not exist in English.
Yeah.
So they usually use the L sound to substitute the R sound.
For tonal languages, do people can maybe study or learn music better because of the tones, because they are similar to music, or there is no effect?
That's a good question. No, people talked about this a lot in the past, right? For those language speakers who do not have the tone, they will think, right? Naturally think that, okay, tone language speaker must be good in music, right? Actually, I don't think it's true. Well, there are researchers about this. There are researchers about it. I cannot agree with that. But because to us, this is our tones tones in tone language are a relative pitch. So in music, we call it relative pitch instead of perfect pitch. Relative pitch is the distance between two notes. In the tone language, you only need to know the distance between two notes. So we may sound that we are very good at distinguishing the different tones, but actually this is something different. The musical sense is something different. It's something different. And of course, not all the tone language speakers are good at music, right? It depends on about the music education and music training the person has. I don't see a very obvious advantages a tone language speaker have over non-tone language speakers.
Another question about the work culture in Hong Kong, in Japan. For outsiders generally of East Asia, we think of East Asians as very hard workers, and I believe they are. You worked in Japan, and you work here, for example, in Hong Kong. Can you tell us a little bit about the work culture of these two nations?
Yeah, I've been working in Hong Kong company, an American company, and also in Japan, Japanese company. I don't think you want to work in Japanese company because they have a very high requirement. But most of you have heard about this, right? Japanese people, they don't go home when the time is up, right? For example, your job requirement is you work until 6 o'clock. No one will leave the company at 6 o'clock because I don't think everyone will work that hard. Of course, Japanese people are hardworking. This is true because of what I mentioned, the craftsmanship, right? They want to do the job perfectly, right? But more is about how people judge them. They're afraid that people judge them, that they're not putting their effort in the company, so they want to stay there later, a little later than the boss. Not before the boss. Right? This is kind of a manner. Okay, I cannot say this is a good culture. This is good, but that's how Japanese people do. You work in a company, you have holidays, right? Paid holidays, right? Yeah. So like for 1 year, you have 16 days, 15 days. In most culture, right, you take all of these, right? You have 15 days a year. How many days will you take?
It will take 15.
It sounds a stupid question, like a stupid question, but Japanese people usually would not take them all. 15 days, most of them would only take less than 10 days. Wow. They abandon their right to get a paid holiday. this is very rare in other culture, right? Very rare.
Yes.
Yeah, in Europe, of course, 100%. Right, take them all. But
Yeah.
Hong Kong also, Japanese people, they dare not to do, dare not do that. This
They
is
would go and work.
yeah, they go. They go. Well, whether they're actually working in the office, we don't know. But they don't take all the 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 paid leave they're entitled to. It's a very weird work culture. I don't think I will practice that culture. But there are researches about that, and there are figures about in the world how many percentage of the paid leave you take. The Japanese always in the lowest ranking. You can search that
Okay, I'll
online.
do. Oh, interesting. How is the work culture from Japan different from the one here in Hong Kong?
In terms of that, working hours is very different. Right? Hong Kong people, well, most of them, okay, we have the breakfast on the work desk. They buy the breakfast and come here on time and start eating while starting to check emails. This is totally unimaginable in Japanese culture. In Japanese, you never bring your breakfast, but because Hong Kong people want to use the time to do both things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is. You can see some, for example, some workers makeup doing the makeup in their position because they want to use the time or most of the time to get some more sleep.
Yeah.
And most of them, before you end your work, they go to toilet and then clean out, right, and to prepare to go, and so they can leave the office at exact time.
Okay.
Right? So this is the culture of Hong Kong.
Okay.
Very most people do practice that, but you can never see that in Japan.
The last segment is in few words. First, what is a teacher?
To me, I think a teacher is someone with generosity. They don't keep things to themselves. They like to see the student know more about them. Right? I think this is well, not the definition of teacher, the definition of a good teacher. I think.
What is the best compliment you've ever got as a teacher?
Oh, I got quite a lot.
That's good. That's good.
Well, half joking. Right? I got some, and I can never forget about that. Some students that comment, right? Some comments. I want you to teach every course I have.
If you could spend a day with anyone, dead or alive, who would you want to be with?
That's a very difficult question. I never think about that in my life. I need some time. No, for example, I can list a lot of famous people in history, right? But I don't think I would be very nervous if I see those people. Right? I would be speechless. So I don't want to spend a day with that person where I have nothing to talk, right, to talk to. I can just listen to. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe someone I like, just someone I love, right? Like my wife. Yeah, someone I love. Yeah, my daughter. I can spend a whole day with her. Right. I'm doing this. I'm not doing this in this a few weeks. I'm so busy, right? But if I choose a person to be with, I would choose my beloved daughter.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's a good answer also, because as I said, sometimes it's difficult to spend a day with those that you look up to, because as you said, you feel nervous and speechless and you don't know what to talk about. So
yeah. Well, maybe I rephrase that. Okay, if you ask me what I want to spend a day with, I would say my future daughter, because I'm with her every day now, but I can see that when she grows up and has her own family, she will not be with me all the time. I would like to spend a day with my future daughter.
how would you define Japan in few words?
Natural, I think. Japanese culture is about natural. Don't change things if you don't need to.
How about Hong Kong? How would you define Hong Kong in few words?
Fast, not perfect, but very, very high efficiency. People are fast, sometimes too fast. Too fast. They just want to do it fast, but the quality is not that good.
I guess that's it. Is there anything you would like to add?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm a linguist, so my interest is in language. So my friends look at me as someone that know everything about Japanese culture, but actually I do not. I have no interest in Japanese manga. I have no interest in Japanese drama, TV drama, movies. Not so much interest in that. I'm more into Hollywood movies. That way.
Okay.
And also, I'm not even so into Japan traveling.
No.
Yeah, I go to Japan to take my child, my daughter, to meet the families. And usually, what I do in Japan is go to shopping and cooking, taking my daughter to the park. Right? So I don't enjoy things that most Hong Kong people enjoy in Japan. What I'm interested in the language. I love the language, so I spend all my time studying Japanese language and looking into the language and the research about the language. And recently, I researched more into Japanese sake and Japanese cuisine, and I found this is a whole new world in that. The Japanese sake, of course. I'm an expert in Japanese sake, and also I do a lot of pairing, food pairing with sake. And I found a very interesting thing in not only the cuisine itself, but the Japanese cuisine has a lot of Japanese cultural background inside. So you need to know about the history of that, of Japan and the society of Japan, and of course the Edo period. The culture of Edo affects a lot of Japanese cuisine. So if you like Japanese food, Japanese cuisine, you really want to look into the Edo culture, the history in 18th and 19th to 20th century. A lot of interesting insight.
Okay. I see. Well, thank you. For people maybe who want to contact you, let's say, how can they reach out to you?
I have two Facebook page. I write things about these. One is about sake. It's the page in Facebook is Shimpakusai, SIMPAKUSAI, and another one is the page I manage for my students. Is talk about Japanese linguistics and translation. I write in Chinese, simple Cantonese and Chinese for my students. So that one is called Japanese Linguistics Facebook. Japanese. No, sorry. The page of that is Sino-Japanese Linguistics. Sino-Japanese or Sino-Japanese Linguistics. These two pages. Sometimes I write some essays about sake or about linguistics.
So if someone wants to contact you, it's better to contact you through Facebook?
Yes, through
Okay.
Facebook.
Okay, perfect. Well, Charles, thank you so much for the interview.
It was fun.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You.